The first presenter will be Dr. Anthony Enimil. He's a senior lecturer at KNUST School of Medicine and Dentistry, and also a pediatric infectious disease specialist, currently working at Confirmatory Teaching Hospital. He's a child health advocate, has been working with the Pediatric Society of Ghana and so many other advocacy agencies to help educate the public. So, Dr. Enimil will start first with his presentation. Thank you all for joining again and welcome. Dr. Enimil, please go ahead.
Thank you, Angela, and good afternoon to everyone. I hope to be very snappy. I will try my best to answer the questions that has come to me previously from previous interactions with others. And then we'll have opportunity to do further interrogation as you put your questions in, and we'll have opportunity for more questions. So as I said, I wouldn't want to waste time. Some of this we know already, symptoms of COVID-19. We have gone past this, but it's still there. Loss of taste, loss of smell, and others. And these are some of the post-COVID syndrome. We are in adults, especially fainting, impotence, forgetfulness, infertility. So again, we don't need to get to post-COVID syndrome, and that is why the vaccine will come as an added on to prevent infections even before people develop sequelae and have post-infection complication or long COVID. So what are vaccines? Basically, they are a bit of agent or foreign body. I mean, I'm explaining it as much as possible. I'm assuming we have a lot of lay attendants, not the medical. So it is just something that we have in mind, that we put something in your body to build immunity such that when the true pathogen or the wild organism comes, the body would have actually sensed this presence and acted. So that is the principle behind our immunization. And this is a typical example of measles vaccines. Measles vaccines are live vaccines. They stimulate the body to produce what we call the antibodies, such that in the near future, when the real measles virus comes around, these antibodies that were produced because of the injection, and we give this to our children routinely, would have been around, and then they will attack the true measles virus such that it doesn't become disease. And it is the same principle underlying COVID vaccine, the same principle, except that the types are different. So measles is actually a live attenuated vaccine. That of COVID, and even within COVID, there are different types. What we have, Covishield, it's a recombination with adenovirus. And so it's a slightly different vaccine, and there are different types. We've heard of the messenger RNA type, which, and typical examples are the Pfizer type and the Moderna. We'll go a bit into this as we go along. So again, immunization has been around for more than 225 years. Started in 1796. So whatever we are doing is not new, except that there has been a lot of advancement in technology. And not surprisingly, vaccines can be made quicker than previously because of improved technology. Now we are able to get the DNA, we are able to get the sequencing of the virus, whether RNA or DNA. And it's very easy to make vaccines after you've sequenced it. And vaccines have done a lot of good, averted a lot of death historically. Again, we are in the process of measuring the impact of COVID-19 vaccine, but it's too early to conclude. Eventually, we will be able to work out figures, the number of sickness or death averted because of vaccines, and this will come very soon. So we all were part of the glamour that actually highlighted the arrival of the Covishield from India. Again, this is the sample that we have. The label is green. We have other types of Astrazeneca vaccines made in Europe. This is the one made in India, and this is the type that we have. It doesn't mean quality has been compromised. It is a generic, and actually the patency was given by AstraZeneca because cost per head is lower when being produced in India, and it is targeting less resource countries like Ghana. So this one arrived from our airport in Accra, and I know it's been distributed. It should get to a place including Boko, and then from there, community must be engaged for the vaccine to be rolled up effectively. So these are trials that were done showing the vaccine is efficacious, and I wouldn't spend too much time on this because our vaccine has arrived. This vaccine will be coming to Ghana. It is not yet in Ghana. The Sputnik V from Russia, but we are expecting it. The good thing is, it's about the same formula as was used for our Covishield or Astrazeneca. They also use the adenovirus, found to be very efficacious, very less side effects. So these are a spectrum of viruses that the methods that can be used to develop the COVID vaccine. mRNA is the one we know, Moderna and Pfizer. The one we are using is the viral vector using adenovirus, AstraZeneca, Covishield. Johnson & Johnson has now been certified for use as well. The difference is Johnson & Johnson is just single shot, but the others, for now, we need 2 doses. I wouldn't go into the details of this, but in case a question comes up and I need to come back, I'll explain. This is the technique underlying how the vaccines are made. So this is the leaflets from the insets of the vaccine that we are using in Ghana. We were not part of the original clinical trial, but it's been done. And the common side effects are there. The contraindications are actually when you have hypersensitivity to any of the agents. So histidine, sucrose, ethanol, there are factors in it. In case you are allergic to any of these, then you don't need to. So far, we haven't had reason to think people have reacted so unusually, having very severe anaphylaxis. It hasn't, to the best of my knowledge, I haven't heard it being reported. But we are gathering data, and I'm sure we'll be able to inform Ghanaians the better with time. So people with bleeding disorders are also not encouraged or are actually contraindicated. Immunocompromised state, again, this might be relative, but if you think you have any status, talk to your doctor, and then we would really be able to vet if you qualify. If you have a condition like HIV, you're on your medications and your life is living normally, you're biologically suppressed, there's no reason why you can't take the vaccine. So these are some of the common side effects that have been found. So these are very common ones, and these are not very different from what we are seeing in our own population as well. Tenderness, pain, and warmth at the area of the injection. I took mine 2 days ago, and the site was very sore. It's now almost gone. When I touch it, I still feel some pain, but virtually that was the only side effect that I got. Some feel tired, fever, rash, headaches. So it varies from one person to the other. Again, common, so this was very common, and then the common symptoms, it could be a swelling at the point of injection, fever, some may be vomiting, flu-like symptoms, but quite uncommon. So these were findings in the people who originally underwent the clinical trial. Unfortunately, Ghanaians were not part of the clinical trial, so our best mode of information is what we started about a week ago. So we are tracking. Food and Drug Authority has sent an app our people to report their symptoms, because that is what we are going to put out as the reaction from Gyneers. So we'll go through this because it might come up in part of the questions. Currently, the recommendations for those who can take the vaccines are above 18 years, male or female. People with comorbidities, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, they should take it. Breastfeeding mothers can take it. Stable HIV, stable sickle cell, stable immunocompromised. Again, this will be individualized depending on the nature of stability, and even stable autoimmune disorders. Again, this must be taken on individual basis, and then we advise based on the type of disorder that you have. People who have previously had COVID-19 can also take the vaccine. Again, people that the vaccine must be delayed, acutely sick people with any other condition, even apart COVID inclusive, but if you have any condition that you are acutely sick, vaccine is not recommended till you recover. And then people who have received passive antibodies, you need to wait for about 3 months. And in some instances, people with previous COVID, there had been opportunities for them to wait even up to 6 months, but we don't have too much data on the level of antibody produced. For that matter, it's very difficult to define exactly when after post-COVID-19 can you take the vaccine. Some have recommended a month or 2, but we need more data to be more specific. We don't have data on below 18 and even in pregnant women. So now studies are going on, and hopefully we should be able to get information on that. So far, in the last week, these are some of the documented symptoms in Gyneers. And it is likely this will be the most common among our population, even though, yes, we keep monitoring and we keep following up. So some have had fever, chills, excessive sweating, which did not last for long, probably hours in a day or 24 hours, and most have resolved. Injection site pain, injection site redness or soreness. Some have had general body pains, some headaches, and few report of feeling sleepy along the line, but it did not take that long. So briefly, all trials, drug trials, go through these phases: preclinical, phase 1 to 3, and then they are licensed. And in fact, what is happening to us now as a country is phase 4. We are not, unfortunately, we couldn't be part of phase 1 to 3, but the vaccination is now ongoing, and we are collecting data on adverse events and severe side effects, and that is all we are gathering. So we are actually currently doing what is called phase 4. On the average, this can take up to 10 years in normal times, but this is what we use in COVID times because we are not in normal times. Accelerated vaccine development timelines. It doesn't mean they cut corners, but you see, this is in the normal times, you finish preclinical before you enroll for phase 1, you enroll for phase 2. But because this disease is a pandemic, killing people, disrupting services, lockdown and all that, the processes were run parallel, such that just as preclinicals were going on, phase 1 was also going on. And once they get preliminary data for phase 1, they start phase 2 with another batch of people who qualify. And then with getting preliminary data, realizing it is safe, they go to phase 3. So that is how we have developed this. You realize like this, it is this phase that Gyneers are taking part that is going to be long, because we are going to be followed up for a very long time. But let's not say it was developed quickly. Technology is there. They did parallel phase of it, such that you wouldn't wait for one phase to be complete before you go to the next. And that's how come we got the results quickly. It doesn't mean quality was compromised. So I'll respond to some issues, and these are about 4 slides on this, and then I would hold on for the next speaker because we'll have opportunity for more interaction. So can pregnant women be vaccinated? As I alluded to earlier, currently there's no data available to support that. So the plan is not to vaccinate pregnant women, but there are studies ongoing to involve less than 18 and pregnant women. So we are likely to get benefits results soon. Can breastfeeding mothers take the vaccine? Considering the benefit of breast milk and the fact that the vaccine is non-replicating, it is unlikely to pose risks to breastfeeding baby. So vaccine is recommended. The second speaker will lay more emphasis on this later, on the benefits of breastfeeding. But for the purposes of our program in Ghana, it is recommended. How long does immunity last? Again, we are still gathering data. I mean, for Ghanaians, we can't even talk about it. We're just giving it within a week. So there will be opportunity to follow up on us, to do random checking of antibody produced and looking at how long it will last. But it's been proposed where countries where they've done it for longer time to be 6 to 12 months. Are we still going to observe COVID-19 protocols? Yes, until we are able to control or eliminate this pandemic, we can't stop adding on the others. So Ghana Health Service will inform us when we are free actually to stop all these other measures, but we are not there yet. And the vaccines are not going to solve the problem. They are going to help us control the infection and break the transmission early enough so that it would fast track our ability to go to normal life. And that is what we all want to achieve. Can I refuse the vaccine? If you qualify but refuse, if you qualify but refuse, the point is you are not helping break the transmitting chain fast enough. You can spread this to your immediate family and to your parents who may have severe form or even die. For the good of Ghana, everyone who qualifies should take it. So we are not going to force anyone, but again, we are in this together. We know how it has disrupted services in country. We want to get over it. As much as possible, if you qualify, please don't refuse because of videos you've seen. Testimonies are being, we've all taken it when we are still taking it. We haven't had reason to think there's anything like microchip or Antichrist or 666. So these are claims, but none has been proven to be true. Propagandists are making and circulating videos which inform people, which uninformed people share. You must refuse to share if you can't authenticate the video. And I think that is one of the problems we have. We don't make the video, but we are distributing it and causing fear and panic. Yet, I mean, we are not able to make vaccines, so let's be careful. And you don't just need to forward if you are not sure and you can't authenticate. I've engaged few people who are spreading it. They can't give you concrete evidence. And again, they can't tell you the type, or because there are so many in the pipeline, there are so many vaccines, which of them contains microchip, because you can't just throw the fact there for us to go and investigate. If you are alleged, you must give enough reasons for us to know which ones you want us to tackle with. Why did we quickly develop this vaccine, but not for malaria or HIV? Again, the technology is there. Now let's know that those who develop the vaccine realize it is killing them fast. Technology is available to develop it quickly without compromising safety and efficacy. So again, we are benefiting. We are not, for the initial 600,000, we do not even buy it. So the question is, people, there was a need for it, and they didn't have to go very fast. They needed to make sure the quality is not compromised. But the vaccines we have has been approved by a Food and Drug Authority. It doesn't mean they went through the clinical phases, because again, this is not the time to do your clinical trial all over again before you approve in a disease that is disrupting economic service. But they looked at the dossier or documents from what has been done, and they had gone through vigorously, looking at the methodology, exclusion criteria, the response and all that. And they think it is good in terms of safety and efficacy. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. But as I said, we are part of phase 4 trial, and that is what has started. So all Ghanaians will become a cohort, and we are being followed up in the next 2, 3, 4 years. It will still be ongoing for us to actually see those who are getting infection, those who are getting the severe, mild, moderate form. These are all things we need answers. But unfortunately, we don't have the answers for our local community. So we must just make sure that if we have challenges, we'll report. If we have issues, we'll report, and then we can put our own data together and then be able to inform ourselves better. And of course, we have opportunity to also develop our own vaccine based on our immune response with regards to the candidates that are available for vaccination. How come this vaccine was created very fast? I talked about it again. It still went through all the phases, but most were run parallel. We are not in normal times. In epidemics, you combine speed, accuracy, precision, and all these were put together so that we can break the chain as early as possible. Now, if I react to this first vaccine shot, can I get the next one? If you have a very severe reaction, I mean, not the mild one that we're talking about, but even if in your mind you think whatever you get is significant, still report to your doctor or the center where you were vaccinated. It must be looked into before the second dose is given. So please take note of this. Can I still get infected or transmit disease after vaccination? Again, this is still being studied, and definitely for our country, we need more information. But generally, transmission seems to be reducing. Disease severity seems to be reducing because we have data from Israel, UK, where they have actually vaccinated a lot of people, and they are beginning to see a drop in their total figures. If I have special condition, can I take it? Again, I said earlier, depending on the type of condition you have, speak to your doctor, speak to those vaccinating. They have been schooled on the conditions for which they can eliminate. And if you can't take it now, we still need to resolve and make sure you are stable enough, and you will definitely have opportunity to take it another time. How many times are we going to take the vaccine? Will we need a booster? Currently, it is, the one that we have, as in the Covishield, you take it and then you repeat it in 2 months or 8 weeks. Even though WHO says we can go up to 12 weeks. So duration varies with type of vaccine. We are still collecting data, which will help us determine whether vaccines or boosters will be needed. In some diseases like influenza, in countries that they have it, virtually every year, they go for boosters. So we might get there, but we don't know for now. because again, this is a living condition. We are learning about it and also taking the vaccines at the same time. Can I combine different vaccines? I mean, at the moment, we have only one type of vaccine in country. That is the Astrazeneca or the Covishield specifically. Hopefully we'll get the Sputnik very soon, and other types are in the pipeline, some from China, which I think we will be looking. So the other variation we are looking at. For now, there's no evidence that you can cross-immunize. So if you started with AstraZeneca, you must do with AstraZeneca. If you start with Sputnik V, you must stick to that. And those doing the immunization will give you a card just to inform them what you took for first, and then the same will inform them on what you take for your second. If I have previous infection, can I take the vaccine? Yes, you have to be vaccinated, even though it might not be immediate, since you may have some antibodies to protect you up to 6 months. But again, this is very difficult to determine our environment because we haven't gone in terms of the number of times. We don't routinely check for people who have been vaccinated for the antibody levels. In some instances, it is recommended that you take it after a month or two after your previous infection, for those who have had infection before. But the WHO recommends that you should still be immunized. When will all these end? Well, the faster we control the infection through observing the protocols plus our vaccine, the closer we can get to normal life. But we are not yet there because we just started the vaccines, and we are aiming at vaccinating 20 million Ghanaians. And the sooner we get all Ghanaians vaccinated, those who qualify, the earlier we can break the transmission before the mutant virus takes over. So long as the wild type is still effective, the vaccines will work. And once it works, we'll break the chain earlier, and we can probably, or sooner than later, move to our normal life. So I would end my presentation here, as I said, and then I'll start responding to the questions that have come up as I make room for the second presenter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Enimil. That was a very elaborate presentation, and I hope we've all learned quite a lot from it. So we'll go on to the next presentation. Our next presenter is Dr. Mrs. Gyikua Plange-Rhule. She's also a senior lecturer at KNUST School of Medicine and Dentistry and a neonatologist. She's been working in the neonatal department for almost 3 decades now. And she's also a lawyer and a massive child health advocate and breastfeeding advocate as well. She's going to talk to us about the COVID-19 vaccine and breastfeeding. So let's stay tuned. Dr. Plange-Rhule, please, if you are ready.
Yes, I'm ready. Yes. Can you hear me, Angela?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you very much. I like the 30 decades. Sometimes it feels like 30 decades. Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. Mine is very, very short. I remember that I had my vaccine on Tuesday, and let me just say that I had absolutely no effects apart from maybe a little bit of tenderness where the vaccine was given. But apart from that, I had no other side effects. So I think it's encouraging to hear from us who didn't have anything, to know that you don't have to have side effects. Some people will, some people won't. But on the day we started, the vaccine center happened to be near my ward, and I work with mothers who have just delivered. And also we have a lot of young nurses who have had babies. Sorry, let me just apologize. I've been asked to start my video. I'm in the same situation as Dr. Enimil. I think the power failure, I'm told it's nationwide. There's no electricity in Ghana at the moment. So again, if I start my video, I prefer to use my laptop because my presentation is here, but I can't because the lights are off. So I won't be able to use my video. Otherwise, I mean, it may not last. So mine is, so as I was saying, we had a lot of young nurses who had babies, nursing mothers, and people kept on asking this question, can I take the vaccine if I'm breastfeeding? So I just wanted to spend a few minutes just to emphasize some of the things that Dr. Enimil said, and maybe to explain a little bit. So as he said, the recommendation for nursing mothers is take the vaccine and continue breastfeeding. Now, why? For a number of reasons, which I'm going to highlight some of them. It's important to protect yourself against the vaccine. So obviously, even if you're a nursing mother, you also want to protect yourself from getting COVID, not against the vaccine, against the virus. You also want to protect yourself from getting COVID. Now, although there isn't that much information about the current vaccines, our experience from many other vaccines which are given to pregnant women is that when pregnant women produce antibodies to protect themselves, these antibodies also go into the breast milk and help protect the baby. So that's one reason why it's important that you take the vaccine. Of course, it's important for yourself. We know that being young, of course, if you're a nursing mother, presumably you are somewhere between 20 and 40 years. Most pregnant women are 20 and 45 years. But we know that being young and healthy doesn't protect you from having severe COVID. We know that, of course, the older people are more likely, but the fact that you are young and a nursing mother will not protect you from COVID. So it's important that you take the vaccine. Not just because to protect yourself from getting COVID, but we know that the COVID is also having very unpleasant side effects. Dr. Enimil mentioned some of them. As nursing mothers, we are not going to have problems with impotence, but forgetfulness and infertility are things that we need to be concerned about. And so there's a need to take the vaccine to protect ourselves. He also explained that we are not, one of the questions I was asked on the first day by one of the mothers was, she's heard that the vaccine can give you COVID-19. So as Dr. Enimil explained, and I'd like to emphasize, what is in the vaccine is not live coronavirus, which can go into your system and give you COVID-19. It's a form of virus which has been treated in such a way that it cannot infect you, it cannot multiply. It's not even the coronavirus, it's a different virus. But it's also been treated in such a way that it cannot hurt you or duplicate or reproduce in your body to make you sick or make your baby sick. So I think that's important to understand. So you will not get COVID-19 and you or your baby will not get COVID-19. Now, another question one of the nurses actually asked me after I said this was, she said, okay, then I'm prepared to take the vaccine, but maybe if I take the vaccine, I should stop breastfeeding my baby and give my baby formula. Now, if you do that, there's certainly no need to do that, because if you do that, your baby will be deprived of the immense benefits of breastfeeding. Now, we all know breastfeeding. The research that is going on breastfeeding is just amazing. The things that are being discovered day in and day out. I don't have a long time to talk about it, but we know that, for example, we know that breast milk, these antibodies that we are vaccinating ourselves to be able to produce, the mother's body automatically makes these antibodies, and immediately they go into her breast milk and they protect the baby from all sorts of serious diseases like pneumonia, like ear infections, diarrhea, and all these things. But equally, or maybe even more exciting, is the recent evidence and knowledge that is being gained from research, which shows that if you breastfeed your baby, especially if you do exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months or as long as you can, not only is your baby protected from immediate infections like pneumonia and diarrhea and all these things, but also well into when he grows up and becomes an adult, he will be relatively protected from diseases like asthma, like diabetes, like obesity, like hypertension, some forms of cancer, rheumatoid arthritis, a whole host. I don't have time to give a whole long list of diseases, which we now know that breastfeeding can help protect your child from, which means that even when he's grown up, he's an adult, he's 40, 50, 60 years, his chances of getting some of these diseases, which have worried all of us for a long time, the diabetes, the hypertension, the obesity, his chances, if he's breastfed when he's a child, when he grows up, he's less likely to get some of these diseases. So the answer to the question, why are mothers encouraged to continue breastfeeding even when they take the vaccine, is simply that what the baby will get from being breastfed far outweighs the tiny even possibility of any unpleasant side effects. And so I brought this up because, as I said on the first day, lots of mothers who are breastfeeding were very concerned And they were saying, now, why is it that pregnant women are not taking it, but breastfeeding mothers are supposed to take it? And the reasons are simply that the benefits of breastfeeding for your baby are really immense. They include not just immediate protection from, some of these childhood diseases, but also long-term protection from a whole host of diseases, including cancer and things. And so definitely it's worth continuing to breastfeed even when you take the vaccine. So I'd like to encourage, if there are any nursing mothers out there who are in two minds as to whether to take the vaccine or whether after taking the vaccine they should continue breastfeeding, I really want to encourage you to do both. Take the vaccine when you have the opportunity. Of course, in the first round, it's health workers, a certain limited group of people, frontline health workers, etc. But if you are in that group and you are nursing a baby, please be confident and go and take the vaccine and continue to breastfeed your baby. So thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Plange-Rhule. Yes, thank you for the presentation. I've seen a lot of questions have come in the Q&A section, and Dr. Enimil has already answered a lot of the questions. But if you have any more questions, you can, at this point, raise your hand and then put your questions in the Q&A session. But we have a little bit of time, so you can raise your hand and then I may allow you to ask your questions. But before then, Dr. Enimil, are you able to answer some of the questions verbally?
Yeah, okay, so I just got to probably the last in the slot I've seen. So please, I heard you are not supposed to get pregnant in the first 3 months of the vaccine because we do not know the effect on fetus. Yes, please, how true is this? Again, people would get pregnant even without they knowing in the first 3 months. So there's data on this, it's yet to be published, but it looks like the fetuses haven't had any severe adverse reaction, but we are yet to get, because again, people have taken the vaccine and inadvertently have gotten pregnant after. They are not supposed to abort, but their children seems to be doing well. But let's wait for the publication of the data. But there's data available and it doesn't look like it's going to affect them. Yet we want to have more concrete evidence. So we still would not go ahead, but nobody will tell you to terminate your pregnancy and get you become pregnant within 3 months of vaccination. But this is an area under study. Yet information will come out very soon on those who do not or have gotten pregnant and are still carrying it on despite being immunized. But temporarily, there doesn't seem to be any severe effect on the baby. Please, I joined late. I have been asked to educate my church on vaccine next Sunday. Please, can I get the slides? Thank you. Okay, so we can talk about this later. It's important for the sake of public confidence to update the information to the public so they don't rely on experience from others who have taken the vaccine and share the unpleasant experience and regret taking the vaccine. So by and large, we haven't had very unusual reaction from the vaccine. Having said that, we are still collecting data. But again, I have taken it, the second presenter have taken it, we took it around the same area. I mean, we don't have reason to think it's, and again, others have taken it in confirmatory setting. And I'm sure I've also had another setters too. The normal reactions are what is expected for any vaccination. However, we are still gathering information and we can inform ourselves better. And again, for all those who go for the vaccine, if you have any unusual event, please report so that we can investigate. I mean, as we said earlier, we were not part of the original clinical trial, so we don't have baseline information for our population. But it doesn't also deter us from going ahead to take the vaccine, except that we need to do proper surveillance. And that is what Food and Drug Authority are helping us to do. Can the elderly on aspirin for previous CVA take the vaccine? So the vaccine would not be contraindicated in this. It is the true infection where they have clotting or bleeding challenges, which can eventually cause challenges. If there is somebody who has effect, as in previous CVA, but not currently having the disease, still mention it to the one doing the vaccination, as in what that patient is on. Again, some of these might come specifics, but the specifics might get specific response. But just from over the top of my head, if the person is not acutely ill, then we can still vaccinate, but bearing in mind that just inform whoever is giving the shot that this is the condition of the person you are dealing with, or the patient you are vaccinating. But we have said, and I said it in my presentation, we will prefer vaccinating stable people. So if you have hypertension, most hypertensives are stable, so they can still take it. If you are diabetes and your sugar is controlled, nothing stops you from taking it. Having said that, still inform the one who is giving you the vaccine, because they've been trained on specific contraindications. And if for any reason you fall into that, then they would advise you either to come another time or then the action to take appropriately. I think we did do enough just to justify why the malaria and HIV have taken too long. Can we say it's because it's an African problem? Well, again, we know COVID vaccine has come early, not because they cut corners, but because investment has been made. But when you judge the first wave, you judge the second wave, generally our European and our colleagues in the US or the whites are having huge numbers in terms of admission, in terms of death. So the reality is they worked fast, they invested to get a solution to that. Now, again, malaria is not their major problem, but there's malaria vaccine, which is also undergoing trial anyway. But these are not major problems at that side. And for that matter, we can't fault them for developing COVID vaccine too quickly. I think African Union as a union can come together and put our strength together and then solve our own problems our own way. Does a person with neurological complications of polio take the vaccine? So again, there are so many vaccines, even in childhood, that are given together. Polio vaccine, especially the injectables, are given with hepatitis B, diphtheria, tetanus, and all that, the 5-in-1. They don't cause any problem. Again, the same thing applies to this one. This is not a vaccine that will give you a problem. But if you have had a complication in childhood, and let's bear in mind, this vaccine is not for children, it's for above 18. And I mean, definitely it took place when you might have been younger. As of now, you are well, except that you have a defect. There's no contraindication for taking this type of vaccine, which also works on a different mechanism altogether. Can the vaccine be recommended for a female who is looking forward to pregnancy? Well, at the point when you are not, it is for non-pregnant women. So if you are looking forward to pregnancy, you are not pregnant. But the question is, after you've taken it, would it have effect on the pregnancy? As I said, there's no reason to say that if you have taken it, you don't need to get pregnant in the next 3 months or so. We don't even know how long the vaccine works. But with the technology for developing the vaccine, there's really no strong justification to say you cannot get pregnant, or if you're hoping to get pregnant in 3 months, don't take the vaccine now. Again, there's a cohort who are being studied because they took the vaccine and they got pregnant. And as I said, there hadn't been any reason to say they shouldn't. But there's no specific answer to this, except that at the point when you are taken, you shouldn't be pregnant, according to the recommendations now. But again, pregnant women are also being studied. So we are going to get more information to fine-tune our stand on this very soon. Please, I am breastfeeding and I've had COVID about a month ago. I still get some of the mild symptoms I have from time to time: headache, bodily pains, profuse fever, sore throat, but never severe. Should I take the vaccine? It is preferred that your symptoms are controlled before you will take the vaccine, because of the possibility of thinking the symptoms might mimic. It might not be the vaccine, but it might be blamed on the vaccine because you've taken it. So as much as possible, we will prefer that you've gone out of the acute phase and then you take the vaccine. I mean, having said that, there's also long COVID, which you don't know when the symptoms will end. But again, for specific cases, I think you need to talk specifically to your doctor, who would also seek the necessary recommendation, because we can't definitely have answers to every specific condition, but it should be dealt with at the level of a specialist, and then we'll recommend what is very good for you as an individual. All that we've spoken about are what goes for the general population, but there might be specific for specific groups of people. Please, I learned the efficacy of Covishield is 60%, and people are beginning to query its effectiveness. How true is this? Yeah, again, 62% it's generally for one shot. Again, extrapolating it from Astrazeneca, with the 2 vaccine can get up to 70%. But this one actually takes prevention of infection, because for the Astrazeneca, they were testing doing PCRs. And so the chances of transmission seems to be better with AstraZeneca than even with the Moderna, because those ones were testing disease. Again, if you are dealing with 10 people and you can prevent infection in 6, in our case, it is better than none. And that is what we have. And that is what has been made available to us. It will still go a long way to break the transmission. And until we are able to do our own and modify and have our own specificity in terms of higher levels, we probably still need to do with what we have now, because it's better than none. And that is the more reason why we are not saying stop your other preventive measures. We are adding this on to our physical distancing, our proper hand washing, and our face masking. And surely, if we do it effectively, the numbers will start going down sooner than later. I have personally managed cases few hours after the vaccination. Important symptoms like diarrhea may be lost to your records, probably because they are not treated to report back the side effect to vaccine centers. In any case, are there designated centers where people report for assistance if they develop adverse reactions? So the first point of call is just report to the place where you are vaccinated. Those who have been empowered to vaccinate have gone through some training, and they will give you the necessary guidelines on what to do. But we need to get every side effect reported, because that is what will describe our own profile as a country. Can my mother with kidney problem take the AstraZeneca vaccine? It should be possible, but we need to quantify the level of the kidney problem. If your mother is having symptoms, they have to be managed by the nephrology team. So whatever it is, talk to the right people. And indeed, it is a condition that is immunocompromised, but they are also at risk, especially your mother. I'm sure she might be in her 60s or 50s. So just get the appropriate health expert to evaluate the type of kidney problem your mother has. And if she is qualified, she will be asked to do the vaccines. Is the vaccine excreted in breast milk? I mean, these are things that we are still studying. The vaccine will not be excreted per se, but the response, which is antibodies from mothers, may go through the breast milk, because it's all part of IgG, which might be good for the child. But we can't get answers to you now. Definitely in our population, we just started, so we are yet to get information on that. But the reason why breastfeeding mothers shouldn't be prevented is it's possible when they are immunized and they have antibodies that may actually be present in the breast milk to also protect the young child from getting COVID. It is said that Covishield is not effective against the South African, Brazilian, UK new strains such as B117, B1351, P1. Not very, so okay, your comments. Well, I just read today that AstraZeneca is actually effective against P1, which is a Brazilian strain. That is today's reporting. So a lot of this information is out there, but we need proper vetted or peer-reviewed papers to conclude. My understanding is South Africa really didn't want the AstraZeneca version because they had the B1351, which is a variant of the original one, B117. Now, from all studies, and we haven't done extensively though, Ghana predominantly has the B117, which in our case, we'll call it the wild type. Or the original China variant, we don't have it here, but this is our wild type. And the vaccine is active against the wild type. But we still have some few within, especially Takrady and Accra, who have the variant, which is the B1351, which are not in the majority. But what is important is that is the very reason why we need to vaccinate early, so that the wild type, which are in the majority, we can control it. And virtually once the majority are in control, the few mutant ones, yes, they may come up with conditions, but they will not be transmitting it as often as that becoming the majority. They would have cut the chain. So it just goes to emphasize that once we have the vaccine, let us be a bit more proactive and then go ahead and take it. And if majority take it and we're able to break the chain fast enough, yeah, it doesn't mean we'll get to zeros, but we're able to deal with the few ones better when we have dealt with the bigger outbreak, which we fear. And that is the reason why we are still holding on to most of our protocols we need to. But for now, there's no evidence that the mutant one are in the majority in Ghana. If they become, then yeah, to have fear that the COVID will not work. But I don't think we have enough evidence to that effect. And for that reason, let's all patronize the vaccines and then get the chain or the transmission chain controlled earlier, sooner than later. Okay, Angie, I think I've answered most of the questions in the box.
Yes, I think you have. If there are any more questions, please go ahead and put them in the box or raise your hand now. I see Ikea saying your hand is raised. Sorry, Dr. Plange-Rhule.
No, I was just saying, I think there's a new question in the Q&A box.
Okay.
I've seen 3 new questions. Does the vaccine reduce transmission of virus or does it only reduce severity? For the COVID, it reduced transmission of virus because, I mean, when they did the test, they were testing people who are becoming positive with the PCR test. And the protective effect or the efficacy is based on the ability to prevent people from getting the infection because you can only transmit when you are PCR positive or when you have the infection. So Astrazeneca specifically or COVID prevents against transmission, and that is why we can break the chain. Sputnik specifically would work along the same basis, but Moderna especially, and then the Pfizer one actually prevent against severe form. So that is actually an advantage of giving the COVID early enough. We are likely to break transmission. Please, there are pictures of Sputnik arriving at Kotoka. Can you please confirm if it's been administered? All that we are giving for now are not specifically, they are specifically COVID, the one in the green bottle. I have no information on the arrival of Sputnik. It may be because it's been approved, but I don't think for now that it's been given, unless probably in the last hours. If N95 is 95% effective, why worry about a vaccine that is 60% effective? Well, again, I think you are supporting the fact that it's actually probably, why worry about a vaccine that is 60% effective? Well, so 95% means 5% of getting transmission. But again, this discussion can come at another level. You prefer 60% than nothing. And for the purpose of community and herd immunity, it works. So let's rather go for it and not just condemn it on the fact that it is 60%. The reason is we are adding on the other measures, COVID protocol, to the 60%, and we are likely to achieve higher percentage than not adhering to any of them at all. What is this myth about vaccine and sexual distinctions for male and female, inability to reproduce? What is this myth about vaccination? Well, in terms of vaccination, the effects on infertility on others are actually true infection. But again, the vaccine, as we know, the recombinant adenovirus, just takes a bit of the viral genome, the bit that actually expresses the spike protein, and put it through engineering to produce the spike protein itself. So it's not a complete virus. And that is why it will not become virus itself and cause disease. And that has not been found to cause infertility. So let's just distinguish between the two. We want to prevent long COVID, and one of the means is to break the transmission and break the chain. Now there are reports, there are models that seems to be suggesting that there could be third wave. And historically, third wave gets worse, easily more, just as the second wave was more transmittable. Third waves are worse in terms of clinical presentation. But again, the best way to not get there is to be fast with our immunization so that we don't even get there. Fortunately, we have vaccines. We need to get as much and a different, if we don't have ability to get just one time, so whatever we want to bring on board, let's get them on board as soon as possible. That is Ghana Health Service and Ministry of Health to help us and get the population immunized as it move fast enough and control the spread again sooner than later so that we don't go into third wave, which might be more complicated and we can't even predict the trajectory of third wave. Angie.
Okay, thank you. A few questions came through our email, so I'm just going to read them. Anna Fianu says, having recovered after a COVID-19 infection, is it still required to be vaccinated, as the body may have already developed antibodies and against the virus, the same thing that the vaccine is thought to do? I think you've already answered this question.
Yes. For this type of virus, we are supposed to still get vaccinated because the level of neutralizing antibody has not found to be very potent to prevent you from getting future infections. So we should.
And then the next question is, please, I heard one isn't supposed to get pregnant. Okay, so this is another question that has been answered already, about getting pregnant 3 months after the second dose of vaccine. All right. Okay. So if there are no more questions, then yes, it's 3:56 now. We've tried to stay within our stipulated 1 hour. If there are no more questions, then I think we can end here. I'll just take maybe any final comments from our panelists. Dr. Plange-Rhule, do you have any final comments?
I think there is one question.
Yeah.
Plange-Rhule is answering. Please, what are the adjuvants to the spike protein of the vaccine that makes it more antigenic? That question has disappeared.
I think it was answered.
Sorry, there was somebody I think who joined late who asked, say she's breastfeeding, can she take the vaccine? The answer is yes, please take the vaccine and please continue to breastfeed after you've taken it. Right.
Okay.
Please, and someone preparing for in vitro fertilization, take the vaccine. That's about 1 week more on medication. Again, I think these are very specialized areas, and I would think if you have to talk to your doctor first, and then if the process is almost taking place, and I know I don't know too much about IVF and how well you are at the initial stage or how unstable you can be on vaccination. We probably recommend that you are stable first, and in case the pregnancy gets established, you don't need to take it in pregnancy. So you can take it after the pregnancy is over. But you need to discuss this with your specialist.
Yeah. There's another question. Please, what will be the way forward for individuals who, for one reason or the other, are unable to take the vaccine shot now? Will there be first shot vaccines? Will there be first shot vaccines when the second doses come in for those already vaccinated? So I think they want to find out whether there will be opportunity for people who didn't get it during this phase to get.
So the reality is there are plans, and it actually is far advanced. And that's as somebody said, probably the Sputnik might have arrived, but I don't have evidence to that effect. More vaccines will come in. The only difference is if you are taking Sputnik, then you must take Sputnik for the second. And if you are taking Astrazeneca, you do the same. But there will be other options available. Sinopharm and others are all there from China, which I know there are plans to procure some. But whatever it is, you just start with one, you take the same vaccine for the second. But there will be opportunity for all 20 million Ghanaians who are being targeted. So there's no fear for cause for alarm at all.
Okay. And okay,
Angela, sorry, quickly, the question on the spike, where I told you the question, I think I was answering the breastfeeding question and I accidentally put it on the spike protein question, but the person was asking how it is that if that a vaccine which has just an adjuvant carrying some of the spike protein can be more effective than a whole virus which has many spike proteins. So to the questioner, the science is not convincing. I don't know whether, Tony, you would like to take that one.
No, again, this is technology at play. You know, the principle underlying PCR test is they just get a little bit of the DNA and amplify it such that it can now be used to test if a person has it or not. So all I'm saying is technology is there. It is not that you are comparing it to the main virus, because the best means of generating immune response is to use a live attenuated virus, because that one, it is the live virus that you have made weak. But the problem with that, and a typical example is yellow fever and measles, is if there's any level of immunocompromise, it can actually become disease. This one will not become disease, but this one is just based on technology. Now, the specific one to Covishield and Astrazeneca, they use chimpanzee adenovirus. Again, the question is, why didn't they use human adenovirus, but chimp adenovirus, which is non-replicating? The chimp is not human. And for that matter, it actually stimulates a better immune response than human adenovirus, because human adenovirus, they are DNA viruses and humans are DNA basically. So we tend to associate more, and the immune response seems to, the body might be tempted to identify it as self more than foreign. But the chimp non-replicating is foreign, and they have put this part of the genetic makeup to produce the spike protein. All the reactions or the response or the side effects and everything, or actually the adverse event that we see with actual disease is due to the spike protein. So the purified spike protein, and it goes through a lot of process. Because of time, I had a slide on that, but it's too late to show that. It goes through a lot of purification. So it is actually put eventually into the virus as DNA, then it is transcribed and then translated again by the ribosomes, and they produce the spike protein itself. So the reaction or the response of human, it is as if the spike protein is in, and then they produce antibodies to the spike protein. The difference is, it is not the true virus giving you spike protein. And I gave an example that, you see, if you want to get the best of immunities, probably people getting the natural infections will be the best. But the problem is some will become moderate, severe, and critical. We don't want to get there. With the vaccine, the body is tricked to think it is the same spike proteins, but it is not with the original. So the reaction cannot be done. But you produce antibodies which can still identify spikes on the main virus in case you come into contact with it. So in terms of immunogenicity, yes, you probably may mount a bigger one with the virus, true virus, but that is not what we want, because we can't predict whether you are going to get the mild, moderate, severe, require ICU and all that. So when we give you a mild form, which is technologically engineered to produce the same spike protein and still you have antibodies present, it is still able to attack the real virus because it is using antibody sites, especially when you are using the non-mutant form. It attacks it and can stop the spread of the infection. Having said that, we are still studying how long these antibodies will be available. And for most of Ghanaians, we've just had it for 1 week. We want to see after the second dose, the level of response, because immediately our body is being sensitized and it's still ongoing. Some of us have different stages of producing B cells, which will give plasma cells, eventually produce antibodies. Other lines are also developing T cells leading to CD4, and also some chemokines and other things are coming into place, and memory cells. All this will be back up. And then when you have the second dose, your antibody levels go higher, it's still circulating. In case you come across the true virus, then antibodies are there already, and then they can control the infection better. And because we are able to control the infection better, you are not going to transmit, and eventually we are going to break the chain. We are ultimately looking at breaking the chain such that we can go back to our normal lives. And that is what this vaccine is supposed to help us do. It's still not perfect, 60, 70%. But if we all take it, then there is always the opportunity to still break the chain. Now that we are beginning in areas where the prevalence or the hotspots, that is when we are breaking the chain faster, because there are other areas where the prevalence is not that high. But when we combine all that, in addition to our vaccine and other things, we definitely can make a bigger impact, and then we can go back closer to our normal lives.
Okay, we have two more questions. One says, can you confirm the source of the Astrazeneca vaccine being administered in Ghana currently? I think you mentioned that already.
We are using the Covishield, which was produced by the Serum Institute of India. So we are getting it from India, but it's the same AstraZeneca company that has given the right for them to produce at a cheaper cost, but not cheaper quality for developing countries like Ghana. So, I mean, Ghana was the first to benefit from the COVAX facility, which is actually being put up to advocate for vaccines for less endowed countries. And WHO is actually part of it. And they made sure that quality is not compromised. But it's at a cheaper cost so that we can all be part of it. It's a pandemic. So they made a strong case that, look, until the last person in the world is protected, nobody is protected. I mean, just one person probably had it in China, and now we have it everywhere. So if we are taking treatment, we must make sure everybody has the treatment. And that's why they give the patency to India and other countries, which already are well known in developing medication for Africa already. So it's just something that they do. The institute in India that is responsible is actually the biggest manufacturing pharmaceutical company in India, and they are well equipped to do that. For that matter, we trust that the quality is good.
Okay. And then what is the experience with adenovirus vectors? Which other situations have they been utilized in? And are there studies available concerning the?
Sorry, can you come up again?
What is the experience with adenovirus vector? Which other situations have they been utilized in? And are there studies available concerning the?
Yes, actually, in terms of the vaccines, the ones that hadn't been routinely used in terms of the newness of technology, it's actually the mRNA. It is the mRNA that hasn't been widely used. But currently, the Ebola vaccine in use actually uses the viral vector technology. And Johnson & Johnson, which has also just been approved, also uses the viral vector technology, which is like the adenovirus. So it's technology that is available, that has been used. And currently, as I said, the Ebola virus actually uses that technology. So it's not new. It's actually the mRNA that hasn't been widely used in terms of the Moderna and then the Pfizer. But even that, we trust that it works well and it actually can be done quickly and has less side effects.
Okay. I think we'll just take two more questions and then we end now. One question says, please, why don't we concentrate on self-testing and make it available to buy as it's being done in Europe?
I mean, it is a good question, but again, it comes to costs and it comes to ability for us to take our own destiny into our own hands. Now we're actually begging for the vaccines, and the cost per head is expensive. So practically speaking, I mean, I'm sure there are people who might have been vaccinated last week who probably, if they are tested, would have tested positive for COVID-19. But the question is, what do you do to them? Do you say because they have tested positive, you are not going to vaccinate them because they are asymptomatic carriers? But again, the next level is, if you test positive, we must necessarily test your antibody level, whether you have neutralizing antibody. But the question is, can we as Africa, when we are actually going to beg for vaccine, be able to do all this? That is why for public health purposes, everybody who is healthy and is not showing signs of disease will be vaccinated. It is not the best, but it is better than none, I think.
And last question in the chat box, it wasn't in the Q&A. She says, what happens if one takes only the first shot? And do those who have already tested positive We've answered this severally already, but do those who have already tested positive qualify for the vaccine? And then several people are complaining about adverse effects. Does it bother?
Yes. Again, not just complain, they should report, because we still need to know exactly the spectrum of events, adverse events we have. And if it's for every reason, it is the very rare or severe type or hypersensitivity type, or people going into shock, we need to stop vaccination. So that is why there is the need for all of us to help and report as early as possible, so that we can also have the data to inform what we do. So I think in that case, we just need to keep reporting and be sure that the information that we are putting across is actually due to the vaccine, not anything else. So in terms of taking just one shot, your level of antibody is not optimal. It is after the second shot that, as individual, your level of protection is high enough so that you don't also potentially become a victim, because you also don't want to be infected, just as you don't want to infect other people. But it is best if you take two, so that the antibody level becomes more protective. And for that matter, you would not get infected and you also don't infect other people. That's why we plead that we all do our best to take two.
Okay,
For those who have had the infection, some WHO, it's not too clear on it, but there are some who, if you already have baseline antibody because you've had infected, you have had a previous infection, it is thought that a single injection will give you a booster enough not to need a second. But again, these are areas which we are still studying, and I'm sure more data will be available with time.
okay. People are asking for any link for where do we report adverse effects, adverse events. I know that there's an FDA link which was shared previously for reporting. I've already put it in. Someone asked this question earlier and I shared it in the answers, but I'm going to just put it in the chat box so that the link is available for anyone to share. And
also, if you don't have it, you can go to where you got immunized and report to the immunization team.
Right. And I think people want you to repeat the answer about getting pregnant after vaccination.
You see, when you get pregnant after vaccination, we are not saying end your pregnancy. What it does is you need to be followed up like we are following up special cases, because we are interested in knowing the outcome of your pregnancy. And as I said, WHO have a cohort of people who have inadvertently gotten pregnant after vaccination. They are being followed up as in normal pregnancy, and there's no reason to think that children are having unusual malformations or defects. But these are areas where we are still following up. So if you get pregnant after you've been vaccinated, you just need to talk to your doctor or any health person in public health or in the institutions you are, just for them to track you, because we would need the information on your child to also tell us if potentially the immunization or the vaccine will have an effect on the child. And this is areas we are all learning. But now the trials are being done in pregnant women. So we are also going to get data on the effect on pregnant women. But bear in mind that we are different vaccines. So for each of them, we should specify the type of vaccine that you took prior to getting pregnant. And we can follow up on that for potential effect on the child, which we are still gathering information on.
Okay. All right. Thank you all so much for joining, and a very big thank you to our panelists for putting this together in such a short time. Oh, I just saw one last question. Is oropharyngeal sample recommended for testing for COVID-19?
So that is one of the options that is available, but some also use the nasal, and whatever it is, test has been done to give specificity and sensitivity. So whatever your facility does, probably it's recommended for use.
Right. Okay. So again, I think I'll just take a last comment from Dr. Plange-Rhule if you have any, and then our president can also give us the final comments, and then we close.
Yeah, thank you very much. No particular final comments, just to, as I said, to keep on encouraging mothers who are, to go on breastfeeding, take the vaccine, go on breastfeeding. your baby will be fine. The benefits are way, 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 way outweigh anything that you can get from the vaccine. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all so much. It's been a very educative evening, as usual. We're grateful to all of you for joining this conversation. And I know that because everything about this vaccine and the disease has been relatively new, there are questions that keep evolving. So it's great that you are asking questions so that we can get reliable answers to our questions. So if you have questions, try and get your answers from reliable sources instead of listening to too many conspiracies and watching too many videos from unreputable websites. So let's keep on asking the questions to the right people. Thank you to our panelists for availing themselves to us this evening. And maybe Dr. Enimil, can you please give us a closing prayer so that we end off?
Okay, thank you, Father, for this opportunity to interact with our fellows. We pray and trust that the discussions have been useful. We'd all be able to inform ourselves, and if we are due for vaccination, let us take it appropriately. Together, we pray that the wisdom that you are giving to our scientists will help us get over this, so that in the nearest future, we can take back our normal lives and improve the standards of the health of ourselves and for that of our children. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.